Coming up on the Making Waves VO podcast.
Because I'm not sick of my job. I'm sick of saying other people's words.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves. Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
Making waves.
This is the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell.
Bobby, we have a very special episode of the Making Waves VO podcast today. I know what you're thinking. How so, Kev?
How so, Kev?
Well, we're going to try to turn somebody around. We've got a guest today that has been doing voiceover for, I want to say it's close to 30 years, 25 plus probably. And when you do it that long, I'm sure there are many, many challenges that you face along the way. One of which may be burning out, getting tired, getting frustrated, getting fed up with the biz, getting, annoyed with the dog and pony show you got to do. Knowing that what we do for a living is a lot of times just to line the pockets of people that are already rich. Sometimes that might affect you. So, Bobby, our goal today is going to be to turn Jeff Bell around and get him back to feeling good and positive and optimistic about this career.
I love that. Because it's something that all of us have to deal with at some point, and whether it's monthly, whether it's weekly or daily, it's just something that you've got to change your whole outlook. And there are many ways to do it, but he's been doing it a long, long time. And yeah, you get to a point. Well, let's just talk to him.
Yeah, I love it. Let's bring him on in. Oh, by the way, the Making Waves VO podcast presented by our good friends at Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO.
And now let us bring in Jeff. Welcome, Jeff Bell, the electric one. And Jeff and I joke about this. Bobby, you may remember my story with Jeff Bell, but let's go back to Magnolia, Arkansas. And I'm going to say it was 1985, 86. I'm listening.
I think it was 87.
87? Was it? Is that when you got there to 98 Rocks?
No, that's when I had the stupid job of being the program director that ruined my life.
Okay. Well, so imagine this this neophyte right here, Bobby. I was in high school still, and this is before I even got into radio. But I was listening to 98 Rocks, the Shreveport rock station, and man, I was in love. And it was part of the inspiration for me to get into radio. And a couple of years later, I was in radio, and I had a desire to move up in markets, which is what we do. And I went down to Shreveport to interview with our guest, Jeff Bell. Jeff, welcome to the Making Waves VO podcast. How are you, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's
Hey,
good
Jeff.
to be back. Hi.
Yeah, and so real quick, that incarnation story of how Jeff and I met, even though he doesn't remember.
I do remember, actually.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I remember. I remember that day. I don't remember the air check or anything after that, but I do remember that.
Oh, good.
Because it was the day after Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, it was. It was Black Friday, and yeah, I want to say, honestly, I think it was like 88 maybe. Maybe it was Black Friday 88.
It was 87 because I was in that interim program directorship, and my wife was pregnant.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then right after my son was born, I left that job. So
Okay.
that's how I figured out the dates.
Very good, very good. Well, Jeff has no idea who this chucklehead from Magnolia, Arkansas is that wants to be in a bigger radio market. And he was kind enough to say, yeah, come on down. I'll record some liners with you in the production room. And he did. And I never heard back.
Well, first you caught him on Black Friday. Nobody wants to be at the job on Black Friday.
That's true. I think I was on the air, too, while you were.
You were because
Oh,
you took a
man.
break. It was funny because, Bobby, that's the days of radio when you had ashtrays in the control room and,
Yes.
all kinds of smoking going on,
Oh, that's the days when we did meth in the control. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh! And so, my admiration for Jeff Bell began in high school, and then he left. I think. Did you go to Dallas from there? Or did you go to Milwaukee?
I went to Dallas.
Okay.
And I was there for a year. Then I went to Miami for a year. And then I went to Chicago. Well, I came back
Wow.
to Shreveport, which led me to the Chicago gig.
Okay. And you were in
'Cause of
Milwaukee for a minute too, weren't you?
Well, after Chicago,
Okay.
after they bounced me out of there, I picked up the Milwaukee gig, and I was there for 9 years.
Oh, you worked at some big markets. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
Jeff.
lucky.
Jeff has that great rock sound, just a great on-air talent for rock, and knew the genre inside and out. Obviously,
Well, in that business, in that day, I have what is referred to as large breasts. So with a voice like this,
okay, that's what
you
it
can
was.
get work.
Yeah, and Bobby, that was the thing. That's what drew me to him. I'm like, he has the coolest voice, and he knew how to use it too, and he was very effective as a rock radio personality. And yeah, and so let's go. I knew a little bit about your radio, and then all of a sudden, I start hearing Jeff on Ford spots. And I'm like, this MFer is doing VO, and he's doing Ford. What the hell? And I'm like, I was like, good for you is what I was.
Yeah.
So Jeff, let's go back a little bit. When did
Okay.
you make that transition from radio and start doing VO?
I had no awareness of this whole voiceover world. I never lived in a town with a radio station until my senior year, and I think it was an automated station. So I never had like radio heroes.
Yeah.
I'd never even occurred to me this was a job you could get. So when I graduated high school in Mexico, Missouri, we immediately moved to Arkansas. In the middle of nowhere, Hardy, Arkansas. And we had some family there. And my aunt saw an ad in the paper to get into radio looking for DJs for this country station. And she said, you should go talk to him. So I did. And that's the first time I found out I had a voice of any kind.
Wow.
The guy's like, yeah, you got pipes, So he put me on. He was having a broadcast school too. So 2 nights a week he would go. It was an AM daytimer, so it'd sign off and you could use the studio to practice. So I would go in a couple times a week and learn radio. And then he put me on middays so I could get paid. And that's how it all started. And I just immediately started looking for better jobs.
That's what you do in radio.
That is what you
true.
do. Or you turn the dial and you're like, I'm better than that sumbitch. I'm going to fucking send him a tape.
That's it. 100%. I'm better than that son of a bitch. I'm going to send him a tape.
Story of my career.
I
right
love
there.
it. Well, what about going from radio to VO? I mean, that was, by the way, this is the second time we've had Jeff on. He was on in the old incarnation of the podcast where we talked about transitioning from radio to voiceover. So how did you make that transition, Jeff?
I started by doing radio imaging. So I had started in 97, put together a home studio and radio imaging demo. And so got my first station in 98. So until 2001, when I was finally asked to leave radio for the final time. And I took them up on it. So I kind of had some business going, not quite enough to keep myself afloat. But I had some business coming in. And I had the studio and the gear and everything ready. And this was in the days I was still sending out reel-to-reel tapes and DAT tapes, running to FedEx every night, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Long before we could send MP3s. And even the MP3s, when they first came out, they weren't that great. So I had a number of stations, and then this girl I was dating took my demo to a local agent in Milwaukee. And she later became my wife, and a tragedy unfolded. But she took that demo. So I
We're not
never
talking
even
about
met.
career anymore.
Yeah, I never even met the agent. I was a radio personality for 9 years in that town, so they knew me. And took my tape, and 2 weeks later, I got the first Ford audition, and I booked. So
Wow.
it just suddenly happened. And then that was in 2001. I did a campaign in Atlanta or Georgia, southern region somewhere. And it must have run part of the summer too, because I ended up getting paid later that summer. But I only did that couple of sessions in February. And then I didn't hear from them again for 2 years until I did an audition. Then I started booking. Then it was crazy. Then it was every day. It was full-time job every day, starting because I was living in Arizona at that time. So I started work at 7 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So it was like 7 to 3 every day, just barking my nuts off, just insane.
So you were under the golden handcuffs then because you were doing stations, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, these guys had me on such a short leash. So
Ford, you're talking about.
Right. Oh. When I started the radio imaging, I booked a station in Leeds, England, and I would go into the radio station and use the ISDN and the telos to do that stuff. But then it started to become a conflict with the station, so I bought my own telos. So when the Ford thing happened, here I am, a guy who's ready to go, got the pipes they want, got the gear. They can dial me up. They don't have to coordinate with a studio and make 8 different phone calls.
Right.
They call my agent. He calls me. We're done. We're booking. We're on our way. So that's how that sort of started to snowball on me. And then also in that period of time, Ford had a lot more regions. So we were just doing so many more commercials. We'd have a 30-second TV and 2 30-second radios and a 60 for every market.
Wow.
And there were like more markets. So it was just an insane time. And I just started, being on call 5 days a week, 6 hours a day in the booth, So it was really insane.
You don't want to miss what's next. Making Waves returns momentarily.
Hey there, this is George the Tech, and you're listening to the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell.
Oh, Bobby, I remember getting into voiceover, and one of the most exciting parts about getting into voiceover is buying all the gear. You don't realize that until you become a voice actor and you got to produce your own stuff. And you go, ooh, this part should be fun. But then you go, I have not a clue on what I'm supposed to buy.
Exactly.
That's why you trust your good friends at Full Compass, fullcompass.com. They know VO there, and you're going to have a great selection of pro audio gear, and you're going to get a lot of good help. And there's a lot of good attributes that go along with buying from Full Compass.
Yeah, so if you're not really sure when you got the piece of equipment and you have questions about it, they have a free 2-year service or repair plan. They have free shipping on orders over $49. I love that. I think my favorite thing is the low price guarantee, because you just never know. You said a second ago that you're getting into this and you don't know what you need, but how about, do you know if you're paying the right price for it? So you don't have to worry about that when you shop at fullcompass.com. They'll guarantee to match the price on the products they sell for new, identical, and immediately available products offered at a lower price.
They have flexible financing, Bobby, and they also have free expert assistance, and that's why we say we know VO at Full Compass.
Everything from microphones to interfaces to headphones to mic booms, they've got it.
If you have any questions and you're more old school and you want to call them on the phone, you can call Full Compass at 800-356-5844. Full Compass and fullcompass.com.
We know VO. And now back to Making Waves.
I could see, Jeff, how that could, something like that kind of schedule, that kind of pressure, how that could lead to our conversation today. But I had reached out to Jeff. A lot of people know I'm doing this VO Friends in the Wild thing where I hear somebody while I'm doing my thing. And so I start recording friends that I hear. And I just love that, sharing their work and stuff like that. And I said, Jeff, hey, man, you care if I share that if I hear you? And he's like, yeah, man, go for it. And he's like, hey, man, let's catch up. And so I called Jeff and we, caught up, chatting it up. And then Jeff, Can I just ask you, would you mind kind of going into a little bit of, why you wanted to chat?
Yeah. So what struck me when I saw that you were going to VO Atlanta as a presenter, and I'm like, this guy's been doing this shit as long as I have. Predominantly you do automotive, so we're doing a similar thing. And I'm like, he seems to still give a fuck about this. And I seem to don't. And I've had a struggle with that for at least a year where I'm just like, I don't care to do this. I can I'll do sessions are good. If I'm getting paid, I'm happy to be doing it. But when I pick up these auditions every day and look at them, I'm just like, is this my real life? Does it have to be like this?
Yeah.
And I think I've really been trying to give a lot of thought to that in preparation for this.
Yeah.
And, I think that it's when you do the same thing over and over, it starts to become tedious. So I've been feeling like I don't have the will to work harder to try to get new clients or audition or, I'm just like, it's inane.
Yeah.
Advertising copy is absolutely inane. It wants to nullify your brain. So when you start to read these cliches over and over, I get these scripts and I know the young people are excited about their handiwork. And I look at it and I'm like, God damn, I wrote this script in 1987. Are we still saying the same shit?
What do you mean?
I have to say it?
They're your most trusted provider. You can taste the difference, Jeff.
You know all the cliches because you have to say them. And every time I pick up a script that's got those in them,
Conveniently
I'm just like,
located at. Oh, my God. It's not convenient if I'm 18 miles away.
For more, call.
So, that is the kind of stuff that has really been striking me as like, how do you stay invested in it and interested in it when you're doing the same things over and over,
Oh, can I ask, and once again, you can tell us whatever you want, but are you at the point where the work has slowed down and you feel like you have to audition, or are you still at a level that you're comfortable making your income and you just, you're auditioning because you're looking at your future? Is it something that you feel like you have to audition more?
No, I feel, well, first of all, yes, the work slowed down because for 20 years I couldn't get 15 minutes away from my studio. They would call me direct, or they would text me like, can you go in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Dang.
So I was like on until right before the pandemic. Ford got an additional agency, advertising agency, and they started taking over and using different voices and things. So up until 2019, I was on a short leash, and I literally never got more than 15 minutes away from my studio because they would hit me up.
Yeah.
So you probably weren't traveling and having any leisure time.
When I traveled, I was just telling somebody about that because they were talking about coming to New York. And I'm like, every vacation I took from 2003 till February of this year, I do sessions. I've been in studios in LA, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, Milwaukee, Tampa. Everywhere I go, I end up spending a day in a studio, or 2 or 3, or every day of my vacation in a studio. So I haven't really experienced that vacation.
Yeah.
So in the last 5 years, yes, it's been slower, but I'm still doing quite a bit of Ford work. I just, instead of being every day, it's like once a quarter or once a month.
Okay.
So, and in the meantime, I've also been auditioning. I've gotten other work, and I auditioned for it out of habit, I guess. Yeah, we all need the work, but that's the auditioning part that starts to just make me feel like I'm in a loop or something.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day kind of loop, whereas I can't be saying this again today.
Right.
I wish you would just put up some cameras, Jeff, just to have going just for any day. And then one day you might snap where you get that audition in and it says some of the most trite cliched shit in the script and you just lose it. And then we see you destroying your studio. And then you grab a bong and then you go out to the woods.
Well, I've actually, when I lived in Nashville, I had studio engineers.
Oh, wow.
Well, my engineers used to roll tape on my rants. I've still got some of those around.
Oh, wow.
Man, I would love to hear
losing my mind. I've calmed down a little in my old age.
Oh, I would love to hear some of
just a
that.
little.
Those rants.
Oh, yeah.
The Casey Kasem rant comes to mind.
Oh, absolutely.
I gotta do
Full
a dedication
throttle.
to a fucking dog.
That was every session for me.
Bobby, did you see the post I put on VoiceOver Pros? Jeff, did you by chance see that? Are you part of VoiceOver Pros on Facebook?
Yes.
I'm kind of glad you didn't see it.
Okay. I'm trying to avoid Facebook.
Yeah, no worries, man. So I basically posed the question, does anybody get burnout from this career, like the auditioning, the game, and the trying for representation all the time? And a lot of people chimed in. I'll
have to go look for that.
Yeah. It's on the VoiceOver Pros page of Facebook. I'll kind of surmise some stuff. Bob and Beam, she's a gal that's been doing this a long time. I remember when I first got into this. You know Bobbin?
We're from Milwaukee, yeah.
Okay, yeah. She's been doing
she
it
was
for
a radio chick up there.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So her thoughts are, I've purposely scaled back and I'm directing my own destiny. She said, I've had a lot of success over the years, but I'm glad to be rid of clients that no longer value me. Thanks to good financial planning, she's fine, and now she just paints gardens. There's a guy named Tom Test that commented. And it's a lot of the same stuff, taking breaks. What did Tom Test say? Oh, I feel it. 15 to 20 years ago, I landed one out of every 15 to 20 auditions. Now I have to audition up to 100 times to land one gig. I'm killing it in political, but my corporate narration has fallen off. Another way to
I hung with him in the reads, Kev.
Did you?
He was up for a political award there. Matter of fact, the same one I was. And
cool.
he said that, that's the one thing right now. Political has been doing really well for him, but we didn't get into this burnout thing. So I was interested to see his reaction when you posted that.
Yeah, he says another way to recharge his batteries is to get involved in a satisfying creative pursuit done just for the joy. Like audition to be in a play, find a local storytelling organization, get up on a stage, even karaoke, he suggests. And I love all those ideas.
So I think that those ideas are separate from the kind of burnout that I'm experiencing. I've been doing a lot of research on burnout in the last week and preparing for this event. And I'm feeling like the kind of burnout that I'm dealing with is different from that.
Because it's the corporate angle, right?
Because I'm not sick of my job. I'm sick of saying other people's words.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And you don't believe them and you can't get behind them.
Well, I'm a professional liar. And I'm not even making that political dough, you know what I mean? I'm not getting the insider
touche.
trading scoop on that shit.
Oh, my.
So you feel like after a while, so the one thing about radio, and I don't miss radio, but the one thing that I do miss about it is the interaction. Mm-hmm. And that you always felt like you were contributing to your community. So in spite of it just being tedious, and here's another goddamn Fleetwood Mac song or whatever, you were talking about the local community, you were shared the weather and that kind of stuff. And then if you needed human interaction, the request line was always raring to go.
Yeah.
So you could have interaction and feel like you're somehow making a contribution to your community. When you sit in your closet for 20 years, talking to yourself, that you don't necessarily notice your contribution. And when your contribution is to just pick the pockets of the public, say that fast.
Yeah.
You wonder, who am I contributing to?
Yeah, I get that.
Who's this for? That's a different kind of burnout than what I'm reading about, where, your job has worn you to a frazzle. This is more like a existential frazzle.
Yeah.
Like a spiritual frazzle. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that you did the right thing as a first step. You talked to Kevin about it and got this off your head.
Right.
You shared with him. So that helps right there, because you are, once again, having some interaction, and he can relate to it, or at least, find somebody who can relate to it. I think that's why accountability groups are so big in voiceover right now, because we're all feeling this, whether it be the type of burnout you are experiencing or I'm experiencing. We're all kind of in the same boat overall. So the fact that you're talking to Kevin talking to me about it is a great first step. I sound like a therapist.
No, but that's seriously what, as I'm looking at some of these burnout articles and stuff, that's one of the first things, they tell you to do is have contact with other people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that most of this stuff is about, going into your job and being overwhelmed by human attributes. But I think that when you work alone, you long for that.
Sure.
Most of my sessions are directed, so I get to interact with people, and all the Ford sessions were that way. They would send me, and they still do, they'll send me a script to demo out, on my own. But all of the sessions, I'm dealing with an engineer and 2 or 3 producers. And you get to have these conversations, and that was every day of my life. In fact, there's some people that I still just call from the Ford crowd and just go, hey, we haven't talked. I miss talking.
Yeah.
So I think that reaching out is definitely a big thing, but I feel like it's the subject matter that burns me out more than the activity. A friend of mine has a breeding operation for big, beautiful gray pit bulls in Florida, and I'm doing a narration for him. And I not only did the narration, I actually mixed and put it together. So I got to sit here with my DAW and do some work, and that still keeps my attention. But when you're separated from all that, like when I first started, I was just doing all car commercials, but I would produce them. Mm-hmm. So it was a very active, busy thing. Once the Ford thing took over, I just sit in my chair and bark, and they do all the fun stuff, So after I just wring myself out for an hour, they go do all the fun stuff. So it takes you away from the part that's kind of, interactive or more enjoyable.
This is the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. I'm George Washington III, voice actor, and I know they appreciate you listening.
Well, that description of our job that has been going around for years about, we're in a padded room talking to ourselves, has more depth to it than it is a joke. Mm-hmm. When you're solo like that, it's going to get to you.
Well, and you're the sole source of the inspiration or the energy, especially when you're auditioning or reading on your own. You don't have someone sticking you in the ribs going, hey, a little more energy.
Yeah.
And you have to pull that out of the clear blue. So it's different than just working alone, because you're performing alone, And
so you're saying the difference is probably has something to do is that you used to do those directed sessions and now it's self-produced, correct?
No, I still mostly do directed sessions.
Oh, okay.
It has more to do, I think, with the subject matter. And when you start these scripts, you guys know you do this shit. Are you kidding me? Do you pick up a script every day and just go, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? This is what we're going to say to human beings.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Do that. And then you put on your big stupid voice and blah, blah, blah. And what is happening?
We've lost a lot of creativity, man.
If I came up to you on the street and started doing this shit, you'd fucking run for cover.
Right.
But no, every time you get a gig, they're like, oh, can you be a little more excited? No. I can't.
Oh my! Well, how do you get back to that, Jeff? The enthusiasm of doing, the commercial read. Even when you see that, how do you How do you fake it? Have you tried to unpack that? Or do you just say, I don't want to, just I'm done?
I think that with Ford, I have a system. I have a physicality related to that. You know, I know what they want from me. They don't want me from other people, but from me, I'm a hard sell guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the doorbuster guy. So I've got that, you know, it hurts my body a little more at 60 years old than it did at 40 years old for sure. But I know how to get into that zone so I can go right to that barking guy and get through it. It's when I audition and I'm looking at these scripts and I'm just like, I don't want to give that energy away for nothing, and because it's more taxing than it used to be. And then it's really, you know, when I was on the radio, I thought of myself as like a sort of half-assed comedian. I'm like a one-liner kind of guy. So I felt like I was putting myself into the words that I was saying. And now I'm not saying my own words ever.
Yeah.
You know what I
see what
mean?
you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes you think, is this the way I want to present to the public or how I want to be in public? And you're just like, well, I'm just a whore and I just take the money and do the stupid thing and dance like a fucking clown and then we move on, you know?
Sounds like you need to go out on the road and do a comic tour talking about radio and voiceover.
If I could remember jokes, I would do that. But, if you tell me a joke right now, by the time I'm done laughing, I will have forgotten the joke. It's such a curse.
But what I want to try to wrap my head around, Jeff, is how can you transfer something like that? Because you do still want to make money in this world, obviously. Do you need
I
to?
just want it to be given to me. I don't want to make it.
You know what I'm saying.
Hey, we said we're being really honest. I mean, this is honest.
That is about as honest as you get.
The checks that are residuals are my favorite ones. There's that's not attached to any effort. I like that.
But in terms of moving forward, I mean, are you set or do you need to make more money?
I still need to make money.
Okay.
You know, I'm pretty close to retirement,
But so how do you justify that in your head? Because I imagine your income is going to have to come from, you know, beyond Ford, some other commercial sources. And how do you justify that in your head that, hey, I'm reading the same garbage that I've been reading for 30-something years, and how do I make it fresh and get excited about earning the paycheck?
Yeah, that is exactly the conundrum. I do audition. Here's the thing that happens. I will pick up a script and I will make the judgment call based on the text. You know, I'm not an actor and I've got this radio voice that cannot be hidden. So the acting jobs aren't really appropriate for me. So the announcer jobs are kind of what I go for.
Yeah.
But
What
if
about
I
other
see the
jobs?
cliches and stuff, I just like, nope. I didn't bring myself to say that shit out loud, you know?
I mean, could you do audiobooks or narration?
I said, Jeff, when we were talking last week, I said, Jeff, you need to tell stories, it sounds like, that you just need to get away from the commercial side and just, I would envision you, man, dude, I don't know if you've ever approached it, but I could see you, but you're going to be handcuffed, the TV affiliate work. I could see you destroying TV affiliate work in a good way.
I used to do some of that too.
Okay.
And that's another thing the thing I don't want is other people controlling my work life.
Okay.
You know, do you remember Chris Corley? I met Chris Corley.
Yeah.
We went to it's been like 10 years ago that I went to my first VO thing in South Florida, Naples or whatever. And Chris was there. And then we had like the Friday night drinking gathering and then the Saturday night session all day. Well, Chris didn't make it to the Friday night thing because he did all that affiliate work and they had him jumping through hoops all day and all night.
Oh.
Like this thing didn't start till 6 o'clock. He still couldn't make it.
Yeah.
And I talked to him the next day and he's like, yeah, these guys are ringing me out. You know, I work all the time. And he's like, I want to do what you do. That's what he said to me. I want to do the commercials during the day. You know what I mean? So whatever thing that wrangles you into a corner, wrangles you into a corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are other things I can offer myself up for. But again, these are all things I've done. I have not done audiobooks, but I also suffer from dyslexia and ADHD, and getting me to the end of a book is a chore that cannot be accomplished.
I'm not making fun, man, but I'm just, I know you a little bit, and I'm just hearing where you're going with that. So
No, and it's gotten so much worse. Years ago, I could finish a book. I just can't even finish a book now. It might be the internet that has caused that, but, so like, the idea of reading a book twice. Are you kidding me? I talked to some of those audiobook guys. They're like, yeah, I read the book. It was cool. So I went in the studio. I'm like, what? You read it twice?
Yeah,
I don't have enough time left in my life.
You'll
to read a
hose
book
yourself
twice.
if you find out one of the main characters had a lisp at the very end of the book.
What about do you have like a coastal agent that send you other things besides commercial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with ACM, and I have a couple other outfits that send me stuff, and there are a lot of other things going on. I just don't book them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on? I don't know if do you train anymore?
I haven't in a couple of years.
Okay.
But and there's something. Here's another thing. I lack the ability to suspend disbelief.
Okay.
Like, I remember this in the 70s. My sister would watch these freaking soap operas during the day, during summer. And I would watch these actors and just cringe as a child. I'm just like, how do you say this stupid shit in public with people looking at you? So I've always had that inability to suspend disbelief. I don't enjoy watching acting because it's like, this motherfucker's lying to me. I know I must be moderately insane, if not completely, but that is a real issue for me, and I think that contributes to me saying stupid shit in public and feeling uncomfortable about that. You know what I mean? Like the commercials and stuff, some of that's just stupid shit you got to say in public. And I guess I'm at a point now where I have enough money that I can choose not to do some else.
Well, when was the last time you actually went to a beach or a resort and just forgot about work? And I know you said that you had to be there for all these places that you record in different cities, but when is the last time that you just went somewhere and forgot about voiceover?
That's not a thing. I'm not a vacationer kind of guy.
Okay.
I have a health condition. I have Ehlers. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So it's a collagen disorder. So everything that has collagen in my body is loose. So all my joints, my skin, everything is loose, and it causes constant pain. So, and it's not brutal pain. It's just there.
Yeah.
And like you probably have moments in your day when you're not aware of your body and you're just floating through life. There's never a moment when I'm not aware of my body. Right now I'm wearing wrist braces, knee braces, and ankle braces. I wear them all the time, every day, just to sort of manage the discomfort. So the idea of going somewhere else and trying to relax, it doesn't really work because I'm going to be uncomfortable. And I'm just as happy to stay home. I'm super introverted that way. So,
what do you do to shut down and take your mind off work?
Well, I smoke a lot of weed.
I was just going to say that. I knew that was coming.
And that can be very effective.
Yes, that will make you forget lots of things.
Oh,
like
but then it'll
paying
make
your
you
bills and stuff.
It'll make you obsess over stuff too. Yeah.
Well, I think that it's not uncommon for artists to need that
Yeah.
little dopamine hit.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more ADHD, and here's my feeling: they've attached autism and ADHD to each other. I think that autism, ADHD, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is the same condition. And I think of it as instead of thinking of it like a audiometer spectrum, I think of it as a globe, that spectrum. And you can be anywhere on that globe and have any combination of these things, because the Ehlers-Danlos is turning out to be fairly common amongst ADHDers too. So I just feel like these are all kind of the same issue playing out differently, you know.
Hang around. We'll be back shortly.
You're listening to the Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. Me? Oh, I'm Joe Cipriano, and I'm here for the popcorn.
Full Compass is your one-stop destination for cutting-edge audio, video, and lighting solutions. With nearly 50 years of industry expertise, we offer a vast selection of high-quality equipment, from microphones, recording interfaces, and software, to audio accessories, monitors, headphones, and other pieces to help you find your ideal sound. Our trained product experts are here to help every step of the way with unmatched customer service. You'll also get free same-day shipping, flexible financing options, and a low price guarantee. Visit us online at fullcompass.com or call 800-356-5844 today.
Making Waves returns.
If there's an answer or a solution to what you're up against right here, could it be something like taking on projects where you actually believe in the copy?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I noticed yesterday when I was doing this thing. First of all, I was doing some tactile work of mixing it. And it was something that I don't normally do. So it was just getting off the beaten path. And I think that's a big factor. You know, when I was in radio, it consumed my mind. Because 6 days a week, you got to go on and say stupid shit on the radio. So your mind is constantly saying stupid shit to you and playing with words and, you know, trying to think of silly things to say. So that had a tendency to eat up my mind. And I think that when you have a business that is you, you can't really remove yourself from it as effectively as if you had a job that you could let go of at the end of the day. You know, it's your voice. Every time you speak, you're aware of it. So, yeah, I think that getting outside of your comfort zone and doing other types of work, if you can get it. But like Kevin and I have the same situation, and we were talking about another friend of ours who's she's dealing with some burnout. I just saw her post something about it yesterday, and she also does the same kind of work a lot. So I think if you get in the golden handcuffs, which is what we're all trying to get, that is going to lead you sort of closer to this burnout feeling, because life is redundant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a lot more opportunity now than there was 20 years ago. It was mostly commercials, but there's a lot of animation and stuff, and you don't have to be in LA to get it. So there are a lot of different avenues that you can sort of approach. And I think that's what people should be thinking about when they're starting their career. They're just dying to be us, you know. But you don't. And when I went looking for help with this notion, nobody in the voiceover business is talking about this. You know, everyone's talking about how excited they are and how much they want to get their gigs and be a big deal. And nobody's like, bro, at some point, this shit's going to whoop you. You know, you're going to get tired.
Well, even on camera actors, they tell their agents, you know, I want something that will inspire me rather than, the same old sitcom or the same. So it's in the business. We just don't have that opportunity. I guess we could just say, I need different projects. I can't do this same grind again. That's burning me out. So you're just going to have to ask for it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the audition process. It gives you a chance to try different things. I did the last thing. The last class I took, I hired a guy that did trailer voice. And that is one. You're good at that, Kev. You got that on your VOs in the Wild thing.
Yeah.
I cannot do that. I can make those sounds, but I can't believe it coming out of my mouth. You know what I mean? I feel like a goof when I do. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I tried, and every time I listen back, I'm just like, I am such a dick. I cannot do this.
Dude, I'm telling you, something that helped me years ago. I went through a rough patch. I don't know, like almost 15 years ago. And it was a personal thing, right, in my life. And I had to do some soul searching and some internet searching, like, how the fuck do I get over this? And one thing I saw that was really effective was doing something nice for somebody else. Man, when I started taking my pain and try to bring joy to somebody else, what a huge difference. Now, I'm not saying you're going through pain. You're in your head right now, and you're trying to figure out how to get out of that headspace. But I don't know if that's something because, we kind of talked about it the other day, and I asked about coaching, and you said, yeah, you've helped some people, but you've never really asked for any money in return. And you don't have to, but you can mentor somebody. You can offer advice to anybody. You could start doing stuff on social like you used to do with your videos, except you don't have to obsess over them, man. You can let Jesus take the wheel and just put something out there.
Hold on a second. Have we met? Do you know me at all?
Exactly, yeah. OCD much? Oh, my gosh. But that was just one thing. Also, before we, because we're running long here, Jeff, do you have access to your email? Would you be able to read an email right here, right now?
Sure. Yeah.
Because I just now came up with it, Bobby. Lacey, sorry to spring on this on y'all. Lacey's our editor and producer, by the way, Jeff. She's here in the background. But I'm going to spring a cold read challenge on you. I just wrote this in the last 5 minutes while you and Bobby were chatting. And but this is, Jeff, I'm sending you this cold read challenge right now. I would love for you to just open it up and just read it.
Okay, I'm ready.
Whatever. I just sent it through the internet verse, and just your regular email that we've been corresponding.
Cold Read Challenge.
And there's no direction, but you don't need direction for this. You can just take a peek and just dive in whenever you're ready.
Okay. I read the first sentence, so I got to stop looking now.
Yeah, don't look anymore.
Bell's Barbecue is the best in town. We slow smoke our meats to be extra tasty. Our delicious dinner rolls are also the best you'll have anywhere. Join us for your special event at Bell's Barbecue. Ask about our catering services, too. Bell's Barbecue, conveniently located at the corner of Main and First, across from Big Dan's Deal Barn. Bell's Barbecue. Taste the difference.
Oh, that's got to reinvigorate you, man. There's nothing tried in there.
Well, I'm going to have to go get some meat and some smoke.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that was just, I was like, let me just write a cliche commercial really quick. And you know what used to drive me nuts? Even in radio, it drove me nuts. And they're half-assing it there anyway. It would drive me nuts whenever the account executives, which are the ones typically writing the scripts, would start a spot with the client name. No headline, no attention getter, nothing to draw me into the spot, not even trying. Just start with the client name and go say something. I'm like, come on, put some effort into it.
Yeah, it's not, you don't just hammer everything,
Yeah.
Sometimes you
have to tell a story. Yeah.
When I build my demos or think about demo making, I try to think of 6 10-second pieces that are the setup to the bit. You know, and oftentimes I don't even get the client name in the demo because it's just the setup that you want. That's the grease. You know, everything else after that is just sell, sell, sell. So that's how I try to think of that, is if you don't have like a setup to your commercial, you've already failed.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not
And that's
setting
where the
scene.
acting comes in, yeah.
Well, acting like an announcer is also acting.
Yeah. It is. It is. And
I'm not an actual radio guy. I was lying to you guys for all those years. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I think that's, and I think that acting, non-announcer acting is a special skill. And that's, again, the thing I can't suspend disbelief on, and just feel free about that. Now that I live in New York City, I'm going to take some improv classes and that kind of stuff to just
Oh, I didn't
force
know you were in
myself
New York
out.
now. Oh,
Yeah, I moved up here just about 8 months ago
sweet.
to be near my son, so I'm in Brooklyn.
nice.
Very cool place.
This is John Malone coming to you straight from the Malone Zone. And you've got the best VO podcast in the whole internet right here. The Making Waves VO podcast with Kevin and Bobby. Boy, are you lucky.
So, yeah, I think there are a lot of ways, and I'm not even in distress about this like it might sound. It's more like envious when I see like Kevin out there teaching and stuff, where I'm like, these guys seem to still like this shit, you know?
Well, like I told you, and Bobby, I told him when we talked, I'm like, dude, you peaked too soon. Like you caught on fire too fast, I think, where mine has just been a steady grind, climbing. And so, dude, you had so much great success so early on. I kind of get that. Like,
Well, and it came fast and hard, and it came constant. You know, there was a certain amount of exhaustion there, but there was also some falling off of the other stuff. You know, if you're making tons of money, you don't think about all these smaller clients and stuff, and they start to fall away, and you don't replace them.
yeah.
And then you just find yourself kind of doing the same thing over and over, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how you can wrap your head around the corporate shill vibe that, you know, that we're all over that, you know, to a certain degree. But transfer it in that, okay, if I play the monkey on this, you know, maybe I'll get that cash, and then maybe I'll be able to spend, you know, a few more hours baking in the apartment, just chilling.
That's kind of how I think about these, you know, these gigs, if I can just get through the script. But I just think that there's a lot of it where I'm not going to buy it from me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to believe me saying this shit, and I'm not going to do it.
You need to tell stories, man. I think you need to tell stories. I think put yourself out there. I love the idea of you doing some improv, because I kind of get a sense that you are a little more introverted, and I think that would help you big time.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I used to think of myself as a funny person, and after, you know, a certain number of years and not using that skill, you don't necessarily think of yourself that way. So that's kind of what I was getting at when I called you, is to try, or when we got together, is to try and just get some of that youthful spark back, you know, that energy that
Peeled those layers back. There's something else in there.
And I think that's really hard to get back to, but you can still smell it in the air. Like you remember being that guy full of piss and vinegar. And, you know, like now it's like mostly just piss.
Before we wrap, Jeff, Lacey, if you would, turn on your mic real quick. So, Jeff, a little bit about Lacey. She's been grinding for a few years now, and she's starting to see some success. Now, her jam is more in the animation and gaming world. That's where her desires are. But, Lacey, hearing all this, how are you still bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about the industry, and especially in terms of commercial work?
Well, I'd have to say a lot of it comes from, A, genuine passion for voiceover. I got into this basically right out of high school and went to college with voice acting on the brain and went full-time in 2021. So it's just genuinely something I love to do. Another thing, though, that helps with keeping the drive, keeping the enthusiasm, especially for commercial or, something as tedious as like an audiobook or something, is I don't apply my identity to voice acting. Voice acting is something I love, and it's something that makes me happy, but it's not the only thing that I am. So if things are slow, if things are starting to feel boring, if I'm starting to get in my own head, I'm not just a voice actor. I love to play video games. I'm a dog mom. I love to cook. I love to read. So being able to rely on different aspects of my identity and my personality help to make voice acting stay fresh and fun, which is what it's always been for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, there you go.
I think that we all have all those other things that we do also. And it's not that I'm burnt out on my whole life. It's that sometimes I look at these scripts and I'm like, I'm not going to say this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this out loud in public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I understand it. Well, man, we're here for you. And I just want to say thanks for being open to doing this.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I know, Bobby, don't you? We've talked about this before. There's so many people, and not just the commercial burnout that you're experiencing, Jeff, but just the whole dog and pony show. The whole thing.
That's part of it, is just as an actor, you're not being yourself a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that after, I've been doing this for 42 years. It's all I've ever done. My only full-time work of my life was radio.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never done anything else. And that's a long haul.
Yeah.
And I'm not a pure narcissist like some of these people who can't get enough of their own voice. I can shut up and forget about it. Sometimes I'm envious of narcissists. How fucked up is that?
Well, best of luck on this. I know it's got a way
well,
on
and
you.
if you guys go through it, you call me and we'll talk. It's something that I think everyone should anticipate, that at some point they're going to get to this place where this isn't as exciting as it used to be.
Yeah.
And you should definitely, like Lacey, have all these other things in your life simultaneously. Mm-hmm. But also that sense of burnout can creep up on you even when everything's great in your life.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing the same thing, same kind of work over and over.
Well, man,
So don't worry about me. I'm fine.
No.
I just kind of sometimes want that youthful spark back.
Yeah, and the thing is it's going to happen. And I think you just putting yourself out there like this and just being honest with yourself is going to be a big change.
Yep.
Because you're just addressing it now and you're putting it out there.
It's similar to the way you think about sports. Like, you remember yourself being a baseball player, so you get out there and grab that ball and go to throw it, and all of a sudden you throw your arm out on the first pitch, and you're like, oh, that was the young me that was doing that stuff.
Right.
Oh, geez, man. Well, hey, man, let's stay in touch. Let's talk to each other, and always hit me up if you need to. And I'm here. Bobby's here. Lacey's here. The whole community's here.
And for all the voiceover friends listening, call your friends.
Right.
Call your friends.
That's a great
Period.
idea, man.
That's
a great idea. Yeah.
So thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Jeff.
So for commercial opportunities, how can folks reach out to you, Jeff?
Don't.
I thought he was going to say fu.com or something.
JeffBellVoiceover.com.
Very good. Very good, man. It's great to catch up with you again. And thanks for your honesty and being open, man. And this is an important topic to cover.
Thanks,
Thank you guys for having me.
So Jeff is a great guy. He's been doing this a long time. And I really think, Bobby, that what I kind of unpacked might have been part of it, because he had so much big success so early in his career. And then he went on a 15-year ride of it being just a white knuckle ride of, automotive and doing all those Ford spots all that time. And it sounds like it was a little bit of a pressure cooker. The money had to be great. but it
Yeah.
can wear on you. And
Somebody told me that at the very beginning of my voiceover career, they said, pace yourself because you will hit that point where you're just like, you just took on too much. So it's something to really, really think about.
yeah. I just love that he was open and honest. And when I reached out to him about, hey, man, can I do your VO Friends in the Wild thing? He's like, yeah. And then he was like, hey, can we catch up? And I'm like, yeah, let's. And I figured there was an angle because it just sounded like more of a, hey, let's catch up. That was a clever disguise. But that was it. And he's like, yeah, man, I just want to. He's like, I see, you just seem really still inspired and fired up about this business and stuff. And and our paths are different. I told somebody this the other night. I was like, every voiceover path is like a snowflake. It really is, because we all come into this a different way. Like the three of us that were just on this, Jeff, me and you, we come from radio. Lacey comes from radio even. But our paths are just so starkly different. So it's some advice is not going to work the same on everybody. What are your takeaways from today's podcast, Bobby?
I think he wrapped it up really well at the end. Just, stay in touch with people who also do this because you do need that human interaction. I mean, we literally are in a booth, reading this or getting through this and you need to hear suggestions or just vent sometimes. So
yeah,
that's my take.
That's it. Let's support each other. Let's keep this industry strong. All those good things. Bobby, the Making Waves VO podcast presented by our good friends at Full Compass, fullcompass.com.
We know VO. Sometimes we don't like it, but we know VO.
The Making Waves VO podcast is produced by K2 Media Productions with hosts Kevin Kilpatrick and Bobby Maxwell. Sound design and editing by Jason Traver. Production assistance by Lacey Deline. Publicity and social media by Shannon Scott and Silas Phillips. Be sure to subscribe to the Making Waves VO podcast on your favorite platform. For all episodes, merchandise, gear, and more, visit makingwavesvo.com. Until next time, I'm AJ McKay. Keep making waves.